Part 4. I try to explain it away in the morning. Sunlight helps. It always does. Fear that feels enormous at 3 in the morning shrinks down to something manageable once the sun comes up and the birds start making noise outside your window and the world remembers to be ordinary again. I told myself there had to be a logical explanation. Maybe the tape had multiple tracks and the player was randomly choosing which one to play, like a shuffle feature on an old machine that malfunctioned in some strange way. Maybe I had told someone about the thrift stores and forgotten, and that person had somehow... No, that didn't make sense either. Nobody could record onto an old cassette tape and place it inside a sealed box in an attic that hadn't been touched in years, matching my private thoughts and unspoken memories word for word. I called my mother's old friend, Denise, a woman who had known her since college, back when they used to share an apartment above a laundromat and split the rent by counting quarters at the kitchen table. I asked if she knew anything about a cassette tape my mother might have recorded before she died, maybe as some kind of final gift. Denise sounded confused. She said my mother hadn't mentioned anything like that. Not once, and besides, my mother had been in the hospital for the last 6 weeks of her life, far too sick and far too heavily medicated to be organizing secret recordings, let alone smuggling a wooden box up into an attic she could barely climb stairs to reach anymore. Part 5. The voice learns my name that night's recording started the same way. Static, then her voice. "Sarah," it said. "You called Denise today. She doesn't remember me telling her anything, does she?"
"That's all right. I never told anyone about you and me. Not really. Some things are just between a mother and her daughter." My whole body went rigid. There was no way it could know about the phone call.
No possible way, unless it was somehow inside my life in a manner I couldn't understand or explain. "You're scared now," the voice continued, and something about its tone had changed. It was still my mother's voice, exactly her pitch, exactly her softness, but underneath it, there was something colder, something patient, the way a predator is patient, waiting in tall grass for the exact right moment. "You don't need to be scared, sweetheart. I just want to keep talking to you. Isn't that what you wanted? Didn't you want one more conversation with your mother? Didn't you pray for it some nights after I got sick? Didn't you lie in bed and beg whatever's listening to just let you talk to me one more time?"
I laughed it off at the time, mostly because I needed to laugh at something, needed the fear in my chest to loosen even for a second, needed this to still be the kind of story you'd tell over wine and then forget by morning. But that night, lying in Priya's guest room, staring at the unfamiliar ceiling, I couldn't stop thinking about the phrase, "don't feed it." Every time I listened to that tape, it learned something new about me. My habits, my secrets, my fears, and each time, the voice sounded a little more confident. A little more like it belonged in my life, rather than being an intruder inside it. I thought about Eleanor Voss, the woman from the newspaper clipping, dead almost 40 years ago after months of strange behavior and an obsession with an old recording. I thought about how thin that article had been, how quickly the story had disappeared from the record, as if someone, at some point, had decided it was safer not to keep asking questions about it. The next morning, I asked Priya if her grandmother was still alive, if maybe she could tell me more of the old story, anything at all that might help. Priya went quiet again and told me her grandmother had passed away 4 years ago, but she remembered one more detail, something her grandmother had always insisted on whenever she told the story to the grandchildren, half joke and half deadly serious. Never say its name back to it. Never repeat what it says. Never answer it directly, because answering is a kind of feeding too. Maybe the most dangerous kind. Just listening in silence was bad enough. Talking back was worse. I hadn't talked back yet. Not once. Small comfort, but I held on to it anyway. Part 8. Trying to end it, I bought a hammer.
That sounds almost funny now, writing it down. Go to a hardware store specifically to buy a hammer to kill a cassette tape, standing in the checkout line behind a man buying birdseed and a woman buying paint samples, feeling like the only person in the world who understood what was actually at stake in that ordinary Tuesday afternoon. But I was not laughing that day. I laid the tape and the boombox out on my kitchen table, and I smashed them both. I smashed the plastic casing until it cracked into a dozen pieces, until the thin brown tape spilled out in loops across my table like intestines, glinting faintly under my kitchen light. I smashed the boombox speakers until they caved in, until the plastic housing split down the middle and the wiring hung out like something eviscerated. I did not stop until my arm was tired and sweat had soaked through the back of my shirt, and my kitchen looked like a crime scene of black plastic shards.